Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us on CGTN. In your opening speech at the plenary session of UNEA-6, you emphasized the three inflection points: wars and conflicts, elections, and restoring trust in multilateralism. It looks a little bit like the third versus the other, doesn't it? So how's the plenary session going? Is it really within your expectation?
Well, thank you very much, Deng, for the invitation, and welcome to UNEA-6 in Nairobi, Kenya. The reason why I mentioned those three inflection points in my opening statement of UNEA-6 is for a very simple reason. We are trying during this week to conclude months and months of negotiations on first actions that will speak to everyone. We are trying in this United Nations Assembly for the Environment to bring voices of the current generations, the future generations, on issues that are affecting everyone around the globe. I mean, we breathe the same air, we are swimming in the same oceans, we get our food from the same nature. So it's very important for us to have credible solutions that will speak to everyone. And the second point is that we are also negotiating a number of resolutions. We had 19 resolutions on many different topics that go from solar radiation management to social justice and climate justice and environmental protection. And also we have the ministerial declaration that will be the culmination of this week at UNEA-6, which will show, hopefully, a very credible ministerial declaration. So that's why I actually mentioned those three inflection points at the beginning of UNEA-6, just to put everyone on the same page and because we are all struggling with the same issues that we don't want to import into the negotiations. We are all being affected by armed conflicts that are having geopolitical implications, global implications, bringing inflationary issues on our populations. Our populations are also still facing cost of living crisis. We are also very much this year, especially as politicians, wary of the elections that are happening in many countries of the global north, of the global south. You have 50% of the world population electing their leaders. At times it can give way to populism that might reverse some policies, especially in the areas of environment protection and restoration. However, I really want this UNEA to be a UNEA of a positive agenda. So we focus on what unites us instead of focusing on what divides us, because the list of candidates of what divides us is very, very long.
Is everyone on the same page? Let's take plastic, for example. The world is hoping that a legally binding global agreement will be reached by the end of 2024. Clock is ticking.
Absolutely, and I think today the INC process has been effectively intertwined in the resolution of UNEA 5.2. So now, after the negotiations are ongoing, and in Canada in April we will have another session of negotiations on the INC process, and we will be actually supporting that process in the ministerial declaration by referring to those negotiations, and we really want to keep the ambition high of reaching a legally binding agreement on plastic pollution, an instrument to make that happen by the end of 2024 indeed. So we're keeping the ambition high.
What about energy? We know last year COP28 reached that landmark deal, calling the world to transition away from fossil fuels. If the world is going to do that, what are the immediately available options, especially for the global south?
Well, I'll give you here, and this is something that I really wanted to highlight. COP28 was a tremendous success for many things, including, of course, the fact that for the first time after 20 years of COPs, after 20 COPs of climate, we had for the first time a language on transition away from fossil fuels, but there were also other important things related to doubling energy efficiency, tripling renewable energy, operationalizing the loss and the damage the Losses and Damage Fund, capitalizing it with $800 million in that fund. These are all elements of credible multilateralism. And I think for me, that is probably much more important than some of the actions that will be taken, because at the end of the day, those actions are taken at the national and regional level. You rightly pointed out to the issues of the question of the Global South, and that's, I would just refer you to the message of His Majesty King Mohammed VI to COP28, where there is a very interesting paragraph. Well, there were two important paragraphs that I want to point at. I mean, the first one is related to the reform of multilateralism and whether multilateralism today is fit for purpose given all the challenges that we are facing. That's point number one. But point number two is related to middle-income countries like the Kingdom of Morocco that are having an ambitious path when it comes to sustainable development, on energy transition as well. I mean, as you know, Morocco has very ambitious targets to exceed the 52% installed renewable capacity in its system before 2030. We are doubling down on energy efficiency, and we are increasing regional integration and cooperation, because we are the only African country that is interconnected energy-wise, electricity-wise, gas-wise with Europe, and bidirectionally. So to answer your question, we have a few countries like Morocco that are middle-income countries hoping to escape the middle-income trap, putting their countries on a sustainable development path, but at the same time taking the heavy lifting by investing in ambitious renewable energy programs to help the world, taking the heavy lifting to help the world in the global fight against climate change. So I think it's very important to highlight the fact that you have a few countries like the Kingdom of Morocco, and hopefully with the help of like-minded partners and allies, and I know that China is one of them, we will definitely be at this appointment that we have with history to set the stage for the next level of our energy transition program, which is to prepare the stage now for ambitious green hydrogen and green ammonia to be able to decarbonize transportation sector, heavy transport, industries, etc., where you need hydrogen and ammonia molecules to be able to decarbonize that.
So what do you make of China's role at this year's UN Environment Assembly, and on a larger picture, the global efforts to deal with environmental challenges?
China has been very supportive in the discussions and the multiple negotiations that we had at UNEA-6, and I was also very happy to greet this morning at the Multilateral Environmental Agreement Day that we organized for the first time at UNEA, the head of COP Biodiversity, His Excellency, that is a very good friend, the Environment Minister of China, because we really want first to strengthen the synergies between the different, the conference of parties, between the different assemblies that are dealing with environmental issues, because we have only one planet. We're, as I said at the beginning of this interview, we are breathing the same air, taking our fish from the same oceans. And also, it was also a great opportunity to discuss our bilateral cooperation between Morocco and China on many areas, not only in the areas of environment, sustainable development, circular economy, but also in the areas of energy and mining, and pushing for a green hydrogen and green ammonia agenda as well.
So what about loss of biodiversity? How will UNEA-6 address that?
I think it's very important that you ask this question during the MEA Day, because if you noticed on the area of, if I take the example of biodiversity and funding of the loss of biodiversity, we are having a number of issues related to funding nature-based solutions, funding technology and science and innovation when it comes to biodiversity restoration. And I think at this stage, what we want to increase is definitely the synergies between the different environmental agreements and COPs, and COP biodiversity being chaired by China, and UNEA today being chaired by the Kingdom of Morocco. I think this area of biodiversity loss and making sure that we are able to find concrete solutions technology solutions, nature-based solutions, but also funding solutions together for this area. It's an excellent point because this is an area of synergy between two very important multilateral environmental agreements.
So talking about building up a synergy, let me be straightforward. What are the most thorny issues hampering that?
I don't think there are thorny issues hampering the synergies because what we are trying to do here is to rebuild and reinvent multilateralism. If you remember, the Bretton Woods institutions and the United Nations was built on the ashes of the world after World War II. It was very important to build peace during the second half of the 20th century. We are just saying that for the global crisis, the global planetary crisis that we are facing today, primarily climate change, biodiversity loss in nature, and pollution, but also some other challenges that are, I would say, more localized, very urgent, but more localized, like desertification, deforestation, issues related to water as well. We are just saying that we need to increase the synergies between all these agencies that were created in the 20th century to be fit for purpose for the very complex issues that we are facing in the 21st century. And I think, and I'm actually very hopeful, that UNEA, the highest level decision-making body on environmental issues, will be the best home to create these synergies. And again, we are not focusing on the thorny issues. We are looking at the areas like biodiversity loss, circular economy, funding, where we can actually build those synergies instead of focusing on what divides us.